Hi all, I wanted to talk to you about ready positions, and in doing so I realize that I'm kind of opening myself up to a video that may not have broad appeal. I know every time I do gear reviews that gets lots of views and a lot of view hours, but when it comes to dealing with technique, a lot of times people don't care as much. But I've really had this video, or at least the concept of it, running around in my brain for years now. And it's really kind of spurred on by every time I teach a new group of students, I kind of see some of the same things or the same pitfalls. And so it really started to kind of come together as something I want to talk about. And maybe it's just getting demons out of my head at this point, but if you come along for the ride, as always, I'd appreciate it. Okay, now, before I even get into the video, I'm sorry, but I've got to do a little bit of a YouTube disclaimer, so stay with me. I'm actually going to read and I'm going to show you guys some very pretty video, maybe of kittens or clouds, I don't know. YouTube, please let me point out that in your advertiser-friendly guidelines under firearms, under the place where it says this content can earn ad revenue, under definitions, it says that a prop gun is a non-functioning firearm by design, and all the guns I'm using are not even anything remotely resembling prop guns. They're plastic, they're not real guns. And it says prop guns when not used to harm a person or property. Please note that this video was filmed under controlled conditions with no danger to anybody or any property, under the express permission and oversight of an NRA certified instructor and a state law enforcement certified firearms instructor. Thank you very much, guys. Since we've gotten that out of the way, I want to talk about ready positions. A ready position in my mind, very briefly, and look, if you disagree with any of this, man, there's a comments section, beat me to death. But a ready position is something that is between a holster and a pointed aimed gun. It is when I need to have a gun in my hand, but it's not to the point of shooting. Ready means just that. I'm ready to shoot, but I'm not shooting. I still have to keep that gun pointed in a safe direction in my ready position. So my ready position really kind of also encompasses that. It is that in-between murky stage of I might have to shoot, but I'm not shooting. So any ready position should really kind of encompass that concept. Like I said, now that's my definition. It's not anybody else's definition. And if you've got some high-speed instructor who disagrees, let me have it. Or if you personally disagree, also let me have it. But that's my definition of a ready position. And probably the original ready position, the one that started it all, would be the low ready position. And if I use my SUL pistol to kind of demonstrate it, if that's aimed in right now on target, a ready position that's a low ready literally just averts the gun downward. And if someone were standing in front of me, that gun would be low enough to where it is not pointed at any part of them. So it would be just beneath their feet. That would be low ready. The problem with low ready is because it is the original ready position, or probably one of the original ready positions, is that it is, I guess, suffering from age and maybe at this point a little bit of disuse. If you've ever hung out with any SWAT bros, they're going to tell you that's not low ready, that's no ready, i.e. it's just not fast enough to get rounds on target. And so from that perspective, I think that it gets some derision, and probably not, it should not, undeserved derision. If you've ever seen SWAT kids in action, they have what I like to refer to as SWAT ready, and SWAT ready is just pointing the gun at everything. That's what I refer to as SWAT ready. No offense to you if you're a SWAT guy, former, current, or it's in your future plans, but that's what I refer to as SWAT ready. Now, like I said, low ready suffers from that general, it's not cool, it's old, it's tired, and so a lot of people either gloss over it or they don't really emphasize it. So now we've got to talk about some other ready positions. And really the ready position that kind of spawned this whole thought exercise that turned into a script and now a video is SUL. And SUL is the gun pointed directly at the earth and your support hand behind your body. And that is SUL. And the problem that I see with SUL, or at least the initial problem that I see with SUL, is that when you teach somebody SUL, or they even get a little inkling of it, that it is so cool and so awesome that they want to use SUL in every application across the board. Now, if you want to go back into history and actually talk about the origin of SUL, legend has it that it originated in Brazil. An American was working with Brazilian police, and they were tasked with working in favelas, i.e. very cramped, poor housing. And the legend has it that at the time, the Brazilian police were not particularly good about muzzle direction, you know, the Cooper's rules of muzzle direction, things like that, and they didn't really care. And so the American, along with them, helped clean them up and came up with this position. And SUL is Portuguese, and it means south. They speak Portuguese in Brazil, as I'm sure most of you know. So that's how we end up with this. And it works really nicely in very confined spaces where you are around a lot of your colleagues that you don't want to point a gun at. That's what SUL's good for. But the problem is there are other things that really cause problems with SUL. Back to my other issue is that I'd see students who want to just do SUL all the time. They would, if they were done shooting, they would cover and scan, and then they would SUL and then go back to their holster. And for whatever reason, it just kept creeping into every aspect of their firearms rituals and techniques. And there are a lot of places where SUL doesn't really work well. Like, for instance, if you're seated, then you're going to point that gun at things that you don't want and that to point it at. And that's especially true of vehicular usage of SUL. I don't think that it is at all appropriate for that. Or if you take a knee or crouch, it is likely that the muzzle will start pointing at things that you don't want to point the gun at. It is slow when you're running. It is awkward. Now, I know that I've got the Usain Bolt equivalent watching this video saying, well, it doesn't slow me down. But for most people, it is awkward. It is just an awkward way to run. And so I don't like SUL from running or really hard movement. But like I said, it just always seems to want to creep into places where it doesn't work as well. When appropriate, I like SUL, but when it's not appropriate, I dislike SUL. And back to the running thing, you know, I was talking to one of my colleagues about running and ready positions, and he said that if he had to run really fast, he would just Martin Riggs it. If you know, you know. I don't know that I love that idea either. I don't think it is a good idea. I think there's a lot of muzzle direction issues. The problem with any movement is that when you move, what is a safe direction will be changing around you as part of your movement. Terrain changes. Your movement needs to take that into consideration if you have a gun in your hand. If you need to run, you could, yes, I'll put my gun back in my holster and then run. That is probably pretty easy to do if you're a cop, because we have a nice big gun bucket sitting on our hip and you can just cram that bad boy in there and get to running. If you're not a uniformed police officer or similar, then it gets harder, because if you're wearing a concealment holster, a lot of those are a little more tricky to get your gun into, especially if you're moving, and especially if you're moving hard and fast. I think that it goes from not just difficult to potentially dangerous, and this can be compounded by what you're wearing, how much nutritional achievement you have managed throughout your lifetime, because I've seen people not able to visualize their holsters because of additional adipose tissues. Not fat shaming, I'm just saying that if that's you, it is what it is. You have to deal with what is, not what should be, could be, or a fantasy world. You've got to deal with reality. Reholstering and running may or may not be possible or safe. So now I've still got to run with a gun in my hand. And I don't want to do anything unsafe. In addition, if I'm not worried about the SUL, but I'm just at some sort of pointed in and I go to get out of a vehicle, there are issues there. It's still quite possible to muzzle yourself. In my demonstration of this, I'm a lefty, but if you're a righty seated in the passenger seat, then you had the exact same problem where if you go to unbuckle, you may very well muzzle your hand. And there's no part of my body that I'm comfortable pointing a gun at. I hope that you are in the same boat where you don't want to point a gun at yourself. Okay, so let's take that off the table and let's consider what we can do. So what I really want to talk about is inside a vehicle, because that presents its own very unique challenge, but there are corollaries in others. If you've ever seen any training that Centrifuge does around vehicles, they're a proponent of something called temple index. And man, you want to talk about a controversial ready position. Whenever it comes up, the opinions are strong in every direction. And the number one thing I hear is, well, they'll shoot themselves in the head. You tell somebody temple index, they'll shoot themselves in the head. And interestingly enough, Centrifuge Training has been teaching temple index for probably about 10 years now. And during that time that Centrifuge has been teaching temple index, they've had nobody shoot themselves in the head using that ready position. If you look at a 10-year span of the same time frame, the number of cops I know of who shot themselves in the leg is much greater than the 0 people that have shot themselves in the head with temple index. I legitimately know individuals who shot themselves in the leg. I don't know anybody currently, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I don't know anybody currently who shot themselves in the head. Now you may be saying that the price of failure in both of those is different, and it's true. If you shoot yourself in the leg, absent a femoral hit, you will probably survive. And all of the leg shooters that I personally know have survived. They are all currently still alive and with us. So that is a factor, and I don't dismiss it. I don't dismiss it. What temple index gives you is, especially inside a vehicle, a neutral place to aim the muzzle, whereas you're not sweeping the entirety of humanity waving the gun around. It indexes it very specifically and anchors it to a spot. I like anchors, things like the top of the steering wheel if I'm doing things, or for that matter, temple index. I know the gun's not going to go anywhere. If I discharge this gun, yes, there will be a loud noise and I will probably have a headache. I'm not going to discharge the gun when I'm doing this. But like I said, if worse happens, I will probably have a scrape on the side of my head and a really ringing ear. That would be a problem. Probably I will have similar issues in any other ready position if I discharge this gun. They may be exacerbated by the proximity to my head, but what I do get, if you do it properly, you still have a full field of view. I still have all my peripheral vision. Okay, 2, wherever I look, the muzzle is still oriented vertically, so it's not pointed at me, it's not pointed at any of my colleagues. Now, is that broadly useful? Should people be temple indexing all the time, all the places? No. Just like SUL, it is a specific ready position for a specific purpose. Taking a technique and applying it to everything, whether it makes sense or not, is dumb. I understand the temptation is there. When we learn something, it's the new hotness, it's the new sexiness. But when it comes to getting in and out of vehicles or maneuvering around vehicles, it's probably one of the better ready positions there are, if not the best. Lastly, if you have to run and everywhere around you is not a safe place to point a gun, this is a lot easier for running than this, okay? I leave it up to you. Everyone's an adult. They can make their own decisions, but it's something to consider. I don't hate SUL. When it comes to ready positions, I like low ready for some things. I like SUL for some things. I like temple index for some things. Understand that I don't think any of those is perfect. They all have their limitations. But what you really need to consider when you're moving is a flow of where the safe direction is, because standing here versus over there versus upstairs versus downstairs versus down the street, the safe direction is always going to change. And if you are aware of that as you move, you can pick the appropriate ready position for your terrain and what's around you, and you can continue to adapt as the situation dictates. If you're familiar with Tom Gibbons of Rangemaster, he refers to it as an arc of ready. And I like that concept. So, you know, shout out to Tom Gibbons. Pretty smart dude, take his classes. But one thing that resonated with me, among many that he has said, is that you need to pick what makes sense when and where you are at and use it accordingly. Back to brass tacks. If there's no threat, you're not running anywhere, the safest place for any gun is a holster. No lie. A proper holster, we'll just say that. But there are situations, back to what I was saying, where getting it into a holster won't happen, not safely. There's one more consideration. If you were a home defender and you got up in the middle of the night with your pistola, Most people don't stop, strap on a frickin' battle belt, and then go investigate. They typically just get their firearm and then go. If you're doing that, you don't have a holster to place this into, so it only makes sense that you have a ready position or series of ready positions that make sense as you traverse your house dealing with what you have to deal with. I think it still behooves anybody, whether you're police, military, or just somebody who is a prepared and armed individual, to understand ready positions and use them accordingly. None is perfect, okay? None of them are perfect, but I think that any one of them may be appropriate depending on the situation. Okay, with that said, I know I'm probably not going to change anybody's opinion. Everybody has very strong opinions when it comes to ready positions. Go ahead and beat me up, tell me how I'm wrong. I am totally prepared. Hit me in the comments, or if you know me personally, you can DM me, text me, hit me on Instagram. I'm there quite a bit as well under the same Grey Dog LLC. Let me have it, it's okay. I'm a big kid. And hate clicks taste just as good as love clicks. So guys, like I said, I don't think this video is gonna have the broad appeal of some of the others that I have done. It's really kind of niche for a niche. And so from that perspective, I think that if I get 30 or 40 views, maybe 50 if I'm lucky, and that's okay. And if you are one of those 40 or 50 people who watched all the way to this point, I really need to tell you that I appreciate you. If gun content, gear content, and the like is something that you're interested in, then obviously it would probably behoove you to subscribe. And as always, likes, notifications, comments, man, I appreciate all that. If you ask a question that is remotely cogent that I can understand, I will do my level best to answer it. I don't get to every comment, but I do get to quite a few of them. And for those of you who comment, I really appreciate you. I'll end this here. I'm not gonna go any further down the rabbit hole of ready positions. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you guys again soon. So guys, take care, stay safe. Thank you very much.
Get 'em, Jay.